In that context, like, what do you consider the most urgent legal challenges faced by Palestinians, refugees, in the current geopolitical climate?
Yes, well, really the issue is survival for Palestinians, and that is true no matter where they are. Palestinians in the diaspora face different kinds of challenges than the Palestinian refugees in Gaza are facing right now, who of course are trying to survive a genocide. But they all have enormous challenges that relate to what I mentioned in the Palestinian exceptionalism. There is a legal aspect to Palestinian exceptionalism, there is a political aspect, and there is a perception aspect to exceptionalism, that somehow Palestinian refugees are different and their case is different from all other refugee cases in the world. And that leads to enormous problems. Right now, of course, in the United States, there is an effort to crack down on activism for Palestine on campuses. And we are now witnessing the arrest and detention of Palestinians as well as advocates for Palestine. So, yes, they face particular problems no matter where they are.
And do you think that United Nations and international communities should have reacted with a lot of more effort, considering that there were so many Palestinians dying and still are, and so many UN staff were dying and still are? Do you think that their reaction should have been with a lot of more effort?
Absolutely, absolutely. This is a total failure of the UN system. And now, of course, Israel has launched a major attack on UNRWA, the last remaining agency that is the lifeblood for Palestinian refugees. And so if Israel is successful in dismantling UNRWA, it is doing a very good job at that right now, given the laws that were passed in October in Israel of last year. That will be the last sustenance for Palestinian refugees. And UNRWA is the only agency that today is capable of delivering the basic needs for Palestinians in all the host states, and of course is the lifeline for Palestinians in Gaza. Of course, this is a massive failure of the United Nations. It's a massive failure of the global order that was supposed to be established after World War II to protect refugees and displaced persons. This is the largest and longest standing refugee problem in the world. And what we're seeing in this complete failure to address their needs and provide a durable solution, the required durable solution, which is return to their homes and restitution of their properties, that if the global system can't deliver on this huge refugee problem, what good is it for other refugees? So that's a big part of what drives me, that this case is the paradigmatic case of the ability of the global order to provide some measure of justice and durable solutions for mass refugee flows.
And what are key legal distinctions between the protection regime for Palestinian refugees and other global refugee populations?
So the major ones are, of course, this disparate, this dual agency. The fact that Palestinians don't fall under UNHCR's authorization in the major host states where they reside. And so there isn't today an agency that can provide, that can access or negotiate for or deliver durable solutions for Palestinian refugees. And that is built in to the major treaties that govern refugee rights and refugee protection. For example, the 1951 Refugee Convention has a specific article, Article 1D, that applies only to Palestinians. And it's a very strange article. There are two clauses to it. But the way it has been interpreted for the most part is to exclude Palestinians from the global protection regime of the 1951 Convention. There's a parallel provision in the UNHCR statute, which is why UNHCR does not provide any protection to Palestinians in the host states. And there's a parallel provision in the 1954 Convention on the status of stateless persons. So in all areas, as stateless people, as refugees, as people who need protection because they're forcibly displaced, Palestinians are excluded from the major treaties that deliver the legal rights to other refugees and stateless people.
And how do you legally interpret the mass displacement, denial of the return, and humanitarian siege on Gaza in light of international refugee and human rights law?
Gaza is more of a case of the massive crime of genocide. I mean, of course, 80% of Gazans were refugees, are the descendants or were refugees from the 1948 Nakba. So they are already people who have been displaced, from that crisis. But what we're seeing in Gaza is, I think, an even broader failure of the UN system, because genocide is the greatest of crimes, and there is a genocide convention that requires all states to prevent and suppress genocide. Not just to stop genocide, but to prevent it. And there has been no real serious effort to prevent what the genocide that has actually been slowly unfolding over the years. To my mind, this is a culmination of a process that began before 1948. The apartheid system that was set up very shortly after the creation of the State of Israel, and has accelerated over the years, accelerated since 1967 in the occupied territory. And now we are seeing what Israel has basically declared is its last stage of cleansing Palestinians.
Why is it being allowed?
It's a good question. It's a failure of the UN system. And I think that's built into the structure of the United Nations itself. The way the UN Charter divides the voting rights at in the political bodies, at the Security Council, with only 5 states having the veto power, the states decide who gets to live and who gets to die. Whereas the General Assembly, which represents the majority of the world's population and the majority of the states, votes again and again against Israel's crimes. But when it comes to the Security Council, because the United States backs Israel at the Security Council, it has vetoed over 40 resolutions that have been proposed against Israel. Nothing can be done. So it's a failure of the whole structure of the UN system.